Have you ever been playing Animal Crossing and thought, hey, why can't I be an animal villager? Why do I have to be a gross human? Okay, maybe not gross, but it's not an unpopular opinion to say the animal villagers are way cuter and more unique than the human ones. Except you, Limburg. So what if you could be an animal instead? Well, Hello Kitty Island Adventure technically solves this conundrum, but I have more nostalgia and love regarding the Animal Crossing series. So today I'm going to make my own custom animal villager. So I pulled a bunch of images of Animal Crossing villagers to get a sense of their scale and all the animal varieties. I wanted to have as many different ones as I could, so I could decide which one I wanted to draw. So you may find it funny that I ended up choosing an animal that has never been featured in the games. It wasn't even intentional. Originally I was thinking a snow leopard would be cute since that's my favorite animal, but I'm not a fan of the way that leopards look in Animal Crossing. They have weird butt faces and they either look angry or constipated. My next idea was a bat. I really like bats, especially fruit bats. I wanted them to resemble more the pig-faced vampire ones, but much cuter because I find those ones a little freaky looking. That's when I looked up Animal Crossing bats and found nothing. How are there no bat villagers? So I guess I'm pioneering on this one, which makes my life a little harder. Oh yeah, and did I mention I'm going to 3D sculpt this? You probably saw it on the thumbnail. I thought just drawing wouldn't be enough of a challenge and would make a pretty short video. To start with, I did sketches of my bat and testing out color schemes. The first idea was the winner for me, a watermelon bat. I think a nice green-blue goes really well with a salmon red color. I only spent a minute or less on each sketch just to get familiar with the design and shapes, as I will be converting this to a 3D space. As a precursor, I am a total novice when it comes to 3D sculpting. Not only is this just a design challenge, but I don't even know what 80% of the buttons do on my 3D program. I've done a couple sculpts total, and both were done with assists from YouTube tutorials online. Luckily, I don't think this design is too complex, so I'm hoping I don't have too many issues when I jump into it. For my second sculpt, I did a little test guy in preparation for my Animal Crossing one. He's, something. I call him Guffy. I watched some tutorials online to make him, so I have a mild grasp on what the tools do. Luckily, Nomad Sculpt is a little easier to learn than Blender or ZBrush, but ZBrush is really expensive and more for professionals. And I am anything but a professional when it comes to sculpting. Once I finished with my sketches, I also did a side profile, which I've seen 3D sculptors use as a frame of reference. And I'm gonna trust that that's the correct thing to do. Now let's bring everything to Nomad Sculpt for the final process. We start with the magic sphere, which will be his head. I'm not going to try and give too many tips, but from what I see online, it's best to get all your shapes in first, and then start refining from there. Similar to how you would when drawing in 2D as well. Start with the basics, and then work up from there. Usually I'll see people drop in all the shapes, whether it's spheres, cubes, cylinders, etc., to get the basic shapes down, and then expand and move them from after that. I think being organized is key here, so I'm going to try and name all my shapes and my layers. I separate most of the shapes into their own layers to start with, and later I end up merging all of them so that I can kind of smooth everything out. You can use the move and drag tool once you have the general shape you want to start the sculpting process. Since this character is leaning into a little pose, certain limbs I did not end up mirroring. The mirror tool is super helpful for limbs, but I couldn't really do that in this situation. Once you're happy with the shape, you can then validate everything which allows you to actually start moving things around in sculpting. I didn't use a tutorial as a crutch for this one, but I just took my time and thought about how I wanted things to look. I was worried I'd go into this and freeze up, not knowing what to do, but it all went pretty smoothly. I think the only thing I had to look up was some of the lighting at the end and why the colors looked a little off. But honestly, I just played around a little bit and it all seemed to fix itself to be how I wanted. If you are more familiar with Nomad Sculpt than I am, you probably could find shortcuts for a lot of what I'm doing. I'm arguably doing things the long way, but at the end of this, I believe the total sculpt time was 3 hours and maybe an extra hour for the painting, so it really wasn't too bad. The painting was the most important thing for me. I wanted the colors to be as close to my sketches, and I think they came out pretty good in the end. The blending was a little wonky, but you'll see that when we get to it. I want to touch on the wings. I wasn't sure what base shape I wanted to start with. You'll see that I went with a box and then kind of just narrowed and thinned it out. If there's one thing I'm not entirely happy with, it's probably the wings and how they looked at the end. I do like them, but they aren't exactly right. I'm not really sure what I would do to fix them in my mind. I fuss with them a lot, as you can see later. I added the little segments in between the wings. I'm not really sure what you call those, to kind of segment each wing section. Even though it's important to help distinctify what these things are and make sure you know that they're wings, I can't help but wonder if it's crossing too much over from Animal Crossing into realistic. But again, because there aren't any bat villagers for me to look at, I was really just making things up. I couldn't go off what they would do. It was just in my mind, what's kind of a simplified version of wings that still look cartoony, but you can still recognize as wings. Also, you will notice I do not go into too much detail sculpting of the face or other areas to highlight certain features. If you notice on an Animal Crossing character, all their features are basically painted on to a flat surface. There are no protruding noses or eyelashes or really much depth at all. At the time when the game came out back in, I think it was either the late 90s or the early 2000s, polygons as they were, you didn't have a lot to work with. So you wouldn't even notice stuff like, detailed eyelashes or noses or anything like that. So it makes sense that they were simple. And I tried to keep it simple too. But I did want the nose to be its own shape and the eyes as well. I felt it would be a little too boring and unchallenging if I just kept every feature 2D. And I hope you agree with me on that. Also, I love the feature that Nomad Sculpt has of having a reference image in the background to work off of. I made it small enough so it can just be to the right of me, but I can always kind of look back, okay, this is how I did it, and I cannot imagine how annoying it would be to have gone back and forth from Procreate to keep looking at my reference pictures, especially when it came to the painting time. Oh, and if you're curious about the random plank under her feet, that's just a floor. It just kind of keeps me level with the design and figure out what the bottom is. There is an option to have a grid. I think I put it on briefly in the beginning. I don't think it's super helpful. Maybe I'm just not using it correctly, but I kind of like just putting a little frame on the bottom of her just to give her a bit of a floor to stand on. I do end up getting rid of it at the end, and that way you see her whole foot and you can kind of loop around it. we are at the painting stage. This stage was fun to finally bring the character to life. I think before we got to this point, you had this cute character, but he didn't have any features, so he didn't have any personality. I just used the paint tool that Nomad has. I've never painted anything in this program before, so I was completely winging it. It was a little slow, especially since the brush is kind of bad. It's quite pixely, and I know that is probably something you can change in the settings. But when you think about it, Animal Crossing characters' designs are also quite a bit pixely, especially the older ones. Especially if we're talking about New Leaf on the DS. Those character designs are kind of rough when you go back to look at it. On a side note, if you've gotten this far in the video, let me know what your favorite Animal Crossing game is. My first game was City Folk, and I love that one to pieces. I played New Leaf, and I really enjoyed that one as well, although it was harder to go from a big screen to the DS screen. I have sunk more hours into the newest one, and I think the quality of life changes in that one probably make it my favorite. So I think it would go New Horizons, probably City Folk, and then New Leaf. And that's just really just nostalgia for City Folk. I hated how tiny the inventory was in the old games, and it's kind of hard to go back to that when you have the fully expanded one in New Horizons. Oh, but I do not enjoy how New Horizons had me face the one spider I have irrational fears over, the tarantula. I am normally fine with spiders, but I cannot with tarantulas. I remember going to the Tarantula Island after flying from the Dodo airport and being scared stiff. I was like, what is this? I did catch a ton of them because I was willing to be a little frightened for almost, I think, 1,000,000 bells profit. Money over fears, am I right? I did burn out on the new game. I have not touched it in a year, and when I did this footage, I had to log back in, which meant killing all the cockroaches in my house and reassuring all the neighbors I was not dead. I did get a villager who moved out, which was sad, but Olivia was the new villager. She seems okay, although I already had a snooty cat on my island, so it wasn't anything new. My hope is to one day have a polo move to my island. He is my favorite villager. He was the first villager I made friends with in City Folk, and I have a soft spot for the grumpy personalities. Octavian is probably my second favorite, and he is luckily still on my island. Looking back on this, I think I could have made the inside of her ears a little bit darker. I'm not sure if it really comes off very watermelony. I think it's a bit of too of a cool mint green, but I just really like mint green, so I just had to use it. I think in the reference picture the color is a little bit darker, so it's more watermelony looking, I guess. I was thinking about doing kind of wiggly lines like how you would actually see on a watermelon, but if you see bats, the way their ears are, they're more straight lines, and I kind of wanted her to lean more towards a bat than watermelon accuracy, if that makes sense, even though it's like she's a bat. I think I really like the way her eyes came out. I wasn't sure because I did push them in to be a little inset, and what I was going to do was then give her eyeballs that would also bulge back out. But and then I was like, that's not you don't see that in Animal Crossing. That might be pushing it too far. So I just left them simply as it was. And it kind of gave me a good guide as far as outlining her eyes and giving her eyelashes as well. And I think it came out nice. Here I am doing her little ballet slippers. I was thinking about her outfit, and I didn't know if I wanted to sculpt a shirt. I didn't. The problem was as when I was doing this, is I was trying to think back and think, are the outfits like printed onto their skin, or is it like an actual sculpt on top? And yeah, it's an actual sculpt on top. So what I should have done was added clothes on top of her. Instead, what I did was I just basically painted them onto her skin. But you know what? I still think it looks pretty good. And I'm not too bothered about that. I didn't end up giving her the dress, which I think would be like her default outfit. I ended up going with the little white shirt, as you can see here. Before we end this video, I do want to talk about my bat here. I'm sure you've been curious while I've been blabbering on. Her final name is Echo, which is a little on the nose, but I think it's cute. Her personality is sisterly, and her initial catchphrase is sugar. I think her favorite KK song is KK Metal, which is my personal favorite. She looks cutesy, but she's a metalhead through and through. And her birthday is August 3rd, which is National Watermelon Day, which I thought was fitting. If you have any suggestions for her personality or traits, let me know. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more next week. Bye bye.